Call to order this meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Number 48 Governing Board. Today is Tuesday, September 6th. The time is 6 p.m. At this time, I'd like to ask Vice President Dr. Hartwells to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's start with the roll call from my far right.
Zach Lindsay.
Libby Hartwells.
And I'm Julie Sanowski. We do have a quorum this evening with 3 of the 5 governing board members present. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor to approve this agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. The agenda has been approved. We'll start off with Superintendent Comments. Dr. Menzel.
Well, good evening, President Sanowski, Vice President Hartwells, and Mr. Lindsay. I appreciate you all being here this evening. And tonight I will keep my comments very brief. We have a lot of really important conversational topics in our information discussion items, as well as some important action items. I would say that I want to give a special shout out to our facilities and grounds and building staff who are working to do their very best to keep our buildings as comfortable as possible. Sometimes we don't win the battle every day, but we do the best that we can, and we've got staff who are working outside in this heat, and so I just want to express deep appreciation for their work. I want to also indicate that we've been working through a number of issues and concerns that we've heard from parents in a few of our elementary schools, and I believe that those are moving towards successful resolution. So all in all, while we're starting the second month of the school year, things are moving in the right direction, and I look forward to the presentations that we have this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. And let's start off with some of our presentations. Information discussion items 4A. SAA, SEA, SSPA updates. Can our leaders approach?
While they make their way up here, I just want to say we are truly grateful for the partnership that we have with our associations, the work that they've done in support of the IBN process, as well as continuing to serve as a sounding board as we work to strengthen the relationship with our employee groups.
Good evening. I get to start. President Sanowski, Vice President Hartwells, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, and guests. My name is Grace Stombries, Principal of Cheyenne Traditional School and Co-President of Scottsdale Administrators Association, with Veronica Leeper, Principal of Sequoia Elementary. The SAA represents principals and assistant principals in Scottsdale Unified School District. On August 5th, Dr. Menzel met with SAA, SEA, and SSPA presidents collectively to present 4 options for the distribution of the increased state funding and for the benefit of employees represented by the associations. We appreciate the opportunity for our employee groups to be offered options, and while a consideration of proposals outside of the 4 options would have been ideal, it is important for our employees to realize the benefits of the state's increased funding as soon as possible and in current year salaries. Vacant classified and certified positions at the schools, the need for employees who are closest to our students strongly challenges our work with increased responsibilities. The increased funding option being recommended to the governing board this evening was selected by the 3 associations for having the most favorable and immediate impact to hourly wages and salary increases for our employee groups. On behalf of SAA, I want to thank the governing board for your support of this recommendation.
Good evening, Governing Board President Sanowski, Vice President Dr. Hartwells, Governing Board members, Superintendent Dr. Menzel, Gladys, and Gus. Tonight is a big night for the SSPA. On your agenda is our recommendation with regards to the K-12 budget that was approved by Arizona legislature. The Scottsdale Support Professionals Association called in an emergency meeting together with our interest-based negotiation team to officially follow policy and procedure when discussing budgetary funding. We considered what all of our survey results were saying and made sure that the monies would impact the masses. We are requesting your approval of our proposal of raising the SUSD minimum wage for classified staff by $2 from $13 to now $15. We strongly feel this will keep us attractive in this competitive market when it comes to attracting highly qualified applicants. Last year in IBN, we created a formula for our pay scale that will automatically filter the pay through the years of longevity as well. Keeping us always $2 above the minimum sets a new standard for SUSD that allows us to be competitive with the surrounding districts. In addition to raising the minimum wage to $15, we are requesting to honor all existing classified employees with a minimum of a $2 hourly raise to align them better financially for the work they are currently doing. Not to mention all the extra work we have been doing keeping this district moving forward, considering the many vacancies. As you all know, our workloads have increased tremendously, and this would help us retain our current education support professionals. Now is the time to show your ESPs how much you value their work. This request directly aligns us with the SUSD strategic plan value of inclusion, where we create an equitable environment where everyone is respected, is treated with dignity, and has a sense of belonging. And goal number 3 of the SUSD strategic plan, addressing talented and qualified professionals, where we attract, hire, develop, support, and retain highly qualified, passionate, and talented professionals. We appreciate this opportunity and will make every effort to keep the momentum going with the relationships being built across the district. Thank you for your support, as well as the support of SEA and SAA. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Menzel, President Sanowski, Vice President Dr. Hartwells, member of the Governing Board, and Ms. Wagner. We appreciate the time afforded to our associations to provide you with an update. SEA started the school year by providing a lunch session in collaboration with the district's new hire orientation team. Over 40 of our current member leaders volunteered to be on hand to welcome our new teachers at this event. Members listened to those educators, both new to the profession and experienced but new to Scottsdale, about their hopes and trepidations as they begin in SUSD. We, in turn, were able to share our membership stories with them and convey the importance of being part of SEA. Collectively, we work to ensure the supports are in place that help us create the excellent learning conditions that our students deserve. We have had nearly 100 new members join SEA since the start of the school year, and we continue to grow each day. We are appreciative of the partnership with the district that allows us to put on this welcome event. On behalf of not just our SEA members, but the entire certified bargaining unit, I ask you to vote in favor of the salary increase recommendation on tonight's agenda. When we learned that there would be additional funds available to SUSD for salary increases, we knew that time was of the essence as surrounding districts began announcing pay increases and positions remain unfilled here. We believe the proposal before you tonight is the best scenario of several proposals, inclusive of all employee groups, given the constraints around the process and the need to act quickly. Since I brought it up, I realize the fact that there are still positions to fill is a challenge across the district, and it doesn't go unnoticed that through all employee groups, we are stretched thin and working to make do in understaffed situations. It is often those of us who work closest with students at the site level that feel the impact of unfilled positions the most. In our 3rd year of navigating first the pandemic and now its lasting impacts on our systems, many of us feel more than ever that our breaking point is near and we simply can't do one more thing. With this in mind, and as we begin the work of our strategic plan implementation teams, I urge a careful lens that fully examines the necessity of what we are adding to the plates of practitioners, without first considering what it is that we are already doing. We must choose the programs and practices that best serve our students, and abandon those that are no longer serving that agenda. We must consider the workload of those who will be doing the actual implementation of our plan. On a final note, I would like to commend our staff across the district for creating welcoming environments for our students where they feel safe to take risks and do their best learning. These classrooms are where I send my own children each day, and I am grateful that they have schools to attend that are inclusive, teach historical and scientific accuracies, and encourage their critical thinking and creative expression as they develop into the adults they will become. Our educators put all they are into being this for all of our students. It is unfortunate in today's climate that many of our educators feel targeted for simply doing their job. Leaders, our teachers need to hear from you that they are doing right by our kids, that you have our backs, and to stay the course.
I'd like to thank all of you for your, not just your presentation tonight, but for your continued hard work. This isn't easy, I understand that, and it is necessary for our entire district for you guys to work collaboratively. You not only set the example for other adults, but also the children that we serve, so thank you all. Up next, 4B, Native American Programs Update, and I believe Sheila is going to be presenting that.
Sheila Seapers is here to present our biannual update on Native American education programs. Always look forward to what she's going to share.
It's more or less what's going to come out of my mouth, right? Well, welcome the board members, Dr. Menzel and Gladys, and all the guests that's with us and virtually. This is an unexpected update. I was hoping to do this in the spring because I'm like, we just got back to school. I don't have enough stuff to talk about, but I guess I do. The first thing I wanted to put up there was our 5-year data of our Native American students. I've kind of highlighted the green one, which is our last school year's numbers of our graduation percentage from each of our high schools. And then the other 4 are the ones that are in yellow. And right underneath the colored ones are versus all students. And for the 21-22, as you know, with the pandemic, our students, we were doing very well up in the 80s and 90s and some points, 100s. When pandemic hit, that really struggled with a lot of our students, and they're still struggling to get back on track. But the first full year being back, I personally think these numbers did very well, considering the fact of a lot of the struggles that we had to go through with these students. And some of the numbers that were included in this 5-year data has to do with, we have some SPED students that unfortunately did not graduate within that 4-year time period, but they did pass after all, so I would love to call them my super seniors. So that's what we're looking as far as our numbers so far. I also wanted to give an update on our summer school participant numbers. As I always tell you, we do have students that attend our SUSD summer school. Our first session, we had 39 participants, 8 withdrawals, 31 total students that attended, and the percentage of the students that passed all their classes that they signed up for was a 93.5%. Second session, they only got a day off in between, so second session, they started on June 16th. There was 39 participants that were registered, 16 withdrawals, which we had a total of 23 students attend, and all 23 of those students passed. So there was a 100% rate on that. This year's our allocated funds for our Title VI is $115,995, which is significantly less than what we have last year. Last year we had $122,000, and it's due to allocation numbers. Our numbers went down during the month of October. So for this funding that we receive, these are the items that we pay for strictly out of this particular grant. We pay for an instructional support staff person, which is a 1.0 at Arcadia High School. And I also wanted to put in there is that is not the only staff person we have. We also have Coronado. She is funded through the desegregation funds, just like myself. So that funding is very crucial to us as well. We're offering after-school tutoring for any school site that may need a one-on-one or maybe a group setting for any of our Native American students. All they have to, principals or teachers have to just call me. I'll work out the EPAR with them and get the services started for each school site. So we do have funding set aside for that. We pay for all high school class fees for all eligible Native American students who have program forms on file with us. We also provide a high school summer school registration fee that is for the SUSD summer school. If for any reason they have to go to an outside organization, we look in that as a base by base because we really want to keep them within our own school system. This year we've had dual enrollment. We've had more students this year so far. I've had 3 students that have taken advantage of dual enrollment with SEC. Each student has taken on 2 to 3 classes per session. So that's a big plus on our end. Student supplies, we also fund student supplies if they need pencils, papers, binders, triboards, I had to get a graphing calculator for one of the Saguaro High School students because the parents could not afford the cost of it. And at the time, we didn't have any on stock in the bookstore. So we were able to buy that for him. He doesn't have to return it. We gave it to him as a gift from our program. It also pays for our high school summer school staff. Those are the ladies that work in the high school SUSD summer school program. They go and monitor the kids. They work with them individually. They break up by whatever their strengths are as far as it's math, English, science. So that's what pays for all of them, so it's not a cost to the district. This year, we're hoping to fund some cultural field trips for our students, bring in some guest speakers, maybe have some cultural presenters come on board. That's our big plan now that we're open back up for visitors. Currently, we're also paying for conferences, workshops for the program staff, any district staff. Coming up in November will be the National Fatherhood Conference that I usually open up to all our school community specialists that they can attend. So anybody is welcome. If there's something looks of importance, they can just contact me and we'll work with it there. This year, we added on instrument rentals due to the fact I had a family that they were struggling to get instrument rentals for their kids. I said, we'll put that in there, so we were fortunate enough to be able to pay for the full 9 months for the full year, so the parents don't have to worry about that. So now they're gonna take over for the summer for I think a month or 2 months, and then we'll come back. If they wanna continue, we'll continue funding that for them, so as long as they stay within our school district. Our Johnson O'Malley allocation this year is $8,025.62. This is significantly low from the previous years because we had carryover funds and so forth, but this year we haven't gotten any yet, but this is what our allocation amount is. But this one so far, we're paying a lot for sports fees for the students. They vary anywhere between $25 to $150. So we're able to do that for them. I just put in supplies for students in case there is something that comes up during the summer that we can't fund out of Title VI. But I think we're gonna probably start gearing more to just putting it all into sports fees because we do have a lot of kids that are taking advantage of that. This is our 21-22 enrollment count. This was taken on the very last day of our school, and it shows here basically we had students in every single school except for Sequoia. So our total enrollment that we ended up with is 503. I did a comparison with what we have for this year as of August 18th of 22 for 23. We have students in every school. Unfortunately, there's only 470, but I haven't done an updated count with that. And the counts that we really focus on is during the month of October because that's the allocation numbers that we use to fund for our grants because we have to have a 30-day count. And then last but not least is our partnership opportunity with Native Health this year. Ironically, this was, it supported our strategic 4 goal of community engagement and partnership. Ms. Perea from Coronado, the liaison, and I got to meet with Native Health one day and found out so many great opportunities for our kids that they are willing to come in and do maybe a beading class or teach kids how to make a drum so it reaches the cultural component. They are also looking at if we needed school supplies, they will put bags together for us so we can hand them out to all of our Native students in the district. They gave us a box of water bottles because we had just asked about, we were joking around and talking about how we went and bought a case of bottled water because some of the kids, they don't have funds to pay for this. So we brought it in. They've already gone through a half a case within a few days. And they said, oh, we've got water bottles. We were thinking water bottles that already had water in it, but they were talking about actual containers. So they sent us back with a full box of it and told us we could send those out to the kids. So we brought it back to the high school at Coronado, and the kids just loved it because then now they can refill their own bottles. And in the meantime, at the same, they sent us back with a box of granola bars for brain food. So we could have that for our after school and sometimes for our lunchtime when some of the kids don't want to eat the lunch. So that's a real great opportunity for us to work with them, and they are willing to come in and even do maybe some parenting classes for us as well. So that's a nice opportunity we've gotten there. So we're hoping to expand and get more into Phoenix Indian Center and other organizations as well. And short and sweet, that's all I have out of mine. I didn't know if you have any questions.
Vice President Dr. Hartwells.
Thank you, President Sinowski. Thank you, Sheila. Always a pleasure to hear your presentations. It's a point of pride. I do have a question, and you alluded to it in the graduation rate data, but you probably saw, and you probably are aware, the information that we had seen in terms of declines. Seminal report was just published, was it yesterday, a national report card showing learning loss, quantifying learning loss for younger children. But the district has gone through some of its early data as well. And the population, well, the district as a whole and the different demographics or the different kind of ethnic groups that the data was broken into are definitely not as bad as the state loss numbers. We do have that in each area, and the demographic that had the largest decline, at least in math, were the Native American students. So you had a nice list of a lot of interventions that also the district is using across the board. What else? What else should we be thinking about to help?
On that is basically, a lot of it is the welcoming, and I know we've been doing that a lot, of welcoming our Native families and trying to make them feel more comfortable of the fact that we are open. I've had some parents say they have noticed differences in this last short couple of years, so that's been good to hear. The only thing that I can see with the students of struggling is that they were just struggling because of the fact that they're not used to the online. Our brains do not work that way. As a Native person myself, I would rather do everything on paper or sit in a class than do everything online. A lot of them, I've talked with some of the students, and they kind of lost that social skill where they don't feel comfortable asking a teacher. They feel like, I can't ask my teacher for help because everyone else is doing fine. But we're trying to encourage them that doesn't make a difference. You need to ask, even if it's privately, ask questions. So right now, just basically supporting the staff, making sure that they have whatever resources they need. A lot of them have been working with the coaches, teachers one-on-one, speaking with administration to get that backup. We've been offering the tutoring. Arcadia, I know the principal there, we talked about Saturday schools.
Yes.
Coronado, also the same thing. We talked about Saturday schools, and I said, if we have to start our own Saturday school, we'll do that. We'll pay you. We'll get the kids here. We'll get something. We'll figure out something to get them some snacks. So then that gives them more encouragement to come into the programs. And, really that's what we're looking at right now. We're trying to find the little niches to get them in the door, kind of like leaving little breadcrumbs. Our families right now, they're still struggling. Some of them are, rent has become outrageous, so they're carrying that burden. The kids are feeling it. So we've been trying to also include them of speaking to social workers, getting some mental health, ideas here of trying to get them through that process. I have one student that is still reeling on the fact that their grandparent passed away because they were very close. So there's a lot of issues. It's not just one thing, but all that is detrimental to the fact of their learning capability. What they found, and I've noticed this year during the trend, is a lot of them have really gone to sports and into band, things like that, that's keeping their mind active and busy. So, at this time, I would say we just need to just keep pushing ahead and adding little things in for the students, offer them summer school, encourage them to go to college,
So thank you for the response, and I'm glad to hear some of the ideas that you just put out there that we haven't done yet, which is Saturday school, longer school days, right? Getting
Yes.
involved in extracurricular activities, and those are all kind of part of the strategic plan, some of the ways to operationalize, I guess, the strategic plan. But my invitation to you is to not be reluctant to put forward bold ideas and how we can support, in particular, this group of students, because the data indicates that is the demographic in our school district that needs probably the biggest hug of wraparound services right now. I'm not saying that others don't, but this particular population is very vulnerable. So thank you again for being here tonight.
I guess we, as natives, we just need to be huggers, but we're not huggers.
I meant that
Because I'm the
figuratively.
same way. I can honestly be perfectly honest. I'm the same way. Somebody goes to hug me, I'm backing off like, no, I'm not a hugger. I had a coworker one time that did that to me. She just came and first time we met, she just ran and jumped at me and gave me a hug. And I was like, okay, what did I do? And she's like, oh, I'm just welcoming you to the team. And I'm like, okay. And to this day, we're really good friends and we laugh about that. But, you know, I will definitely keep that in mind and, you know, I'll talk with Dr. Dodds, Karen about it and we can look at other avenues that maybe we can support those kids.
Thank you.
Sheila, I want to
Yes.
thank you as well, and I hope that the students as well as the families feel comfortable enough to ask for help. You had mentioned that they're not there yet. So whatever it takes to encourage them to realize that that's part of learning and for all of our students and employees as well, and our families. So when I think questioning is a good thing, because I ask a lot of them, so. But again, to reiterate what Dr. Hartwell said, come forward with ideas. Maybe a student has an idea that we haven't thought of yet, because sometimes that's where our best ideas come from. So I do appreciate that. I appreciate seeing this. I wonder, was there any follow-up with the students that withdrew from their summer sessions to see why?
Yes. Well, one of them, I can tell you, he was there every single day. He came in on time, sat in class. He unfortunately we didn't realize is that he had an IEP, but the specific class that he was in was his English class. It was not integrated on that 504 plan. So we kind of found out very late in the game. So we did push that first thing as soon as school started, so he does have that accommodation help now. So we're back on track. I talked to his mom about it, and she said, yeah, she goes, I didn't know that I needed to have that. I thought the one just covered everything. So we've got that taken care of. The other student, she just would not come and get extra help, even though we offered, I mean, we offered lunch. I'll run to McDonald's or something to get you something just because it was after school. And she just would not. She just wanted to do her own thing. But she was also a McKinney-Vento student, so there was other factors involved that I'm sure that she did not want to talk to us about. So those were the only two students that withdrew.
Again, appreciate the work that you do and appreciate you, so thank you. Look forward to hearing from you again.
In the spring.
Yes, yes.
All right. The only thing that I just wanted to kind of bring up is that to kind of keep in the back of your mind, Native American Heritage Month will be coming up here in a couple months. And I would like to kind of offer, if we could possibly do this, I will even email about it. We have our little Yaqui community that is, like I told you, has been the foundation of this program. I would like to see us recognize that little group of community members that are running that program to kind of come in and, maybe if we can do something for them to show that we're up and beyond now from where we were before. There's about 3-4 of them that are board members that I would like to see us recognize them, probably maybe do that during Native American Month. So,
Sounds like a good idea.
just
you.
wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff we need to hear. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And now we will move on to another exciting presentation. It scans across all levels of our education system, and that is our IB program update. I show that coordinators Sarah Armstrong, Kate Hillman, Laura Kempka, and Kevin Shea are going to be presenting this evening.
Good evening, President Sanowski, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Gladys. Thank you for letting us come to present to you to give you an update on our 3 programs that span our 3 schools. The International Baccalaureate Program. I'm Laura Kampka. I'm the Diploma Program Coordinator at Desert Mountain High School. You will also be hearing from Kevin Shea, who is our Middle Years Program Coordinator at Desert Mountain High School. You'll also be hearing from Kate Harrison, our Middle Years Program Coordinator at Mountainside, and our Primary Years Coordinator, Sarah Armstrong at Anasazi. And all four of us also want to thank our principals in support that they've given us during this process.
They've got your backs.
The first item we thought we would start off with is highlighting the commonalities between the IB mission statement and the SUSD mission statement. As you can see, we're not going to read through it, but in the SUSD mission statement, it talks about embracing diversity and community engagement, which are things that are very important to the IB program in general. And another area that spans all three of our programs is the IB learner profile. And I had noticed while I was sitting there, you had your SUSD values back there, and many of the IB learner profile traits are the same traits that SUSD also values. And from the littlest learners, the youngest learners at Anasazi, all the way up to our seniors at Desert Mountain High School, we try to instill these traits within our students through our programs. The IB wants their students to be inquirers. They want them to be knowledgeable. They want them to be thinkers, communicators, principled, open-minded, caring, risk takers, balanced students, and reflective students. And these are all traits that we work on. Some of our kids are stronger than others in some traits, so we try to do some reflection on them in regards, our students reflecting on where their strengths and weaknesses are in regards to those traits. I'm going to start off the presentation just for the fact that the Desert Mountain program is the oldest in the district. We received accreditation on August 12th in 1998. And in fact, I have a bunch of files, and I still have that actual hard copy accreditation letter that we got from IB when they said that we were finally an accredited school. One of the myths about this program is that you can move the IB from school to school, and that's not the case. Each school itself is accredited. So all of our schools have gone through the accreditation process, and each school is accredited. So if another school wants to be an IB school, they would also have to go through the accreditation process. We had our first testing class in May of 1999, so that meant our juniors were testing in that year, and then they graduated in May of 2000. We are the 5th oldest diploma program in the state, and Arizona now has 24 diploma program schools. And Desert Mountain is called a diploma program, a diploma-only program. We do not do the certificate program. And so that's one of our unique qualities, and that way we are able to coexist with the AP program and have the IB program because we're not necessarily competing for the same students. Another commonality you'll see between the three of our programs is this, the concentric circles. Ours is blue. It's the IB Diploma Program model. And our students test in 6 different subject areas. So they test in language and literature, language acquisition, individuals and society, math, sciences, and the arts. And they get a score in each of those classes on a 1 to 7 scale from IB. Similar to AP gives a 1 to 5 scale, IB gives a 1 to 7 scale. Our students take a combination of higher level classes, which are called HL classes. Those are 2-year classes that span junior and senior year. And they also take a mix of standard level classes, which they take either their junior year or their senior year. And then in the center of our program model, you'll see our core, which is our theory of knowledge class, the extended essay, and our creativity, activity, and service program. Students earn their diploma by earning 24 points. So when they earn on the 1 to 7 scale, they have to earn 24 points, which comes out to an average of about 4 points a class. And being an English teacher, I can do the mathematics on that. Testing statistics for Desert Mountain. Since 2007, Desert Mountain has averaged about 55 diploma program candidates a year and has a passing score of approximately 85%. So that means that 85% of our seniors that are taking their IB tests earn their IB diploma, which is a phenomenal passing rate. That is due to all of the hard work that our teachers put into helping the kids, and the hard work the kids put into the program to study, and the hard work the parents put into the program to making sure that their kids do well in school and pass those tests. I put down some statistics here, just kind of going back to 2016, and the striking statistic is that Desert Mountain is consistently above the Arizona average, above the US average, and above the world average. In 2020, or 2020, IB tests were canceled, so we did not take any IB tests that year. 2021, we chose as a school not to take IB tests, but students were still able to earn their diploma. And then as of this year, we don't have the statistics yet for Arizona or the US. We all have a coordinators meeting on Friday where we're expecting that we're going to get those statistics, so we can update you on those. One of the other striking elements of this data is that our students in 2022 had not taken any IB tests until their senior year because they were canceled in 2020 and canceled in 2021. You had these seniors going in for high-stakes testing to earn their diploma without ever having sat for an IB test prior to that. Usually the juniors will sit, they'll get a feel for a couple of their classes, and then they have more tests their senior year. But our teachers did a phenomenal job with these kids and helped them to pass. Also, one of the unique aspects of the program between all three of us is that we are truly in an IB continuum from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. We are a feeder school program, and not too many school districts in our state can actually say that. Our students can start in the elementary school, can go to their feeder middle school, and go to their feeder high school without having to leave their friends or anybody else and go across the district like some other programs have. So when the district was planning for this was, we thank you for doing this because we can see, and it's nice for the elementary kids to be able to, or the teachers to see how their kids do as they get to high school. However, one of the things that SUSD was lacking for almost 20-some years was a foundation to the program. The diploma program stood alone by itself for quite a while, as you can see from when we started. And just a few years ago was when we started building that foundation for the house with the primary years program and the middle years program. So next we're going to go back to the beginning and hear about the primary years program at Anasazi.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening. I'm Sarah Armstrong. I'm the IB PYP coordinator at Anasazi Elementary School. Thank you for this opportunity to share information about our IB program. The IB Primary Years Program is the first step in a student's IB education and the foundation of all IB programs. IB PYP is offered for students ages 3 to 12 years old. Anasazi began its IB journey in the fall of 2018 and officially became an IB candidate school in June of 2019. This was pursued as a way to increase enrollment at Anasazi, as well as providing the foundational piece to the existing IB schools within SUSD. I am happy to announce that our final verification visit will be in November and will lead to full authorization. We're excited too. This would not have been possible without the talented and dedicated educators at Anasazi who work throughout COVID to meet the demands of transitioning to a PYP school. It's truly a privilege to work at Anasazi. Currently, there are only 7 authorized PYP schools in Arizona, and our plan is to be number 8. So what makes the PYP unique? The PYP is inquiry-based, which promotes student engagement through questioning and experimentation. It is transdisciplinary with a connection to all subject areas. This promotes conceptual understanding, where students integrate prior and new knowledge, which is then applied to larger world concepts. This type of education positions students to better meet the challenges of our future. The PYP encourages student agency, where students form partnerships with teachers and are active participants in their learning. Students learn to be internationally minded. They recognize that they are part of a global community and share responsibility towards each other. PYP students inquire and celebrate other cultures. At Anasazi, we try to find ways to embrace our diverse school community. And recently, we conducted an informal language survey and discovered that we have approximately 15 different languages spoken by our students. At Anasazi, students also learn a world language, and Spanish is offered for students kindergarten through 5th grade. Finally, the students are encouraged to take meaningful action connected to their learning. Action includes participation, advocacy, social justice, social entrepreneurship, or lifestyle choices. So what does this look like at Anasazi? Anasazi teaches Arizona and SUSD curriculum standards, but they are placed within the PYP framework. This includes 6 transdisciplinary themes of who we are, where we are in place and time, how we express ourselves, how the world works, how we organize ourselves, and sharing the planet. In 5th grade, students complete exhibition projects that represent the culmination of their PYP education. This project is student-directed, and students are encouraged to take action on a topic of their choice. This school year will be our first year completing this project, and we're really excited to see what our students create, and you'll all be invited as well. Finally, I would like to share some data that illustrates the positive effects of becoming an IB PYP candidate school. Since becoming a candidate school, enrollment has increased by almost 20%, and we anticipate the school continuing to grow. 121 new families joined Anasazi for this school year, and some of these families moved from abroad and have told us that they specifically chose Anasazi for our IB program. 40% of our student population is open enrollment, and 97% of last year's 5th grade class enrolled in Mountainside for 6th grade. It is clear that our students wish to continue their IB education, and Mountainside provides the next step in the IB journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate the foundation you are building at Anasazi, and we are already seeing how beneficial it will be in preparing students for success in the middle years program at Mountainside. I'm Kate Harrison. I am the IB coordinator at Mountainside Middle School. At Mountainside, we offer the first part of the middle years program, or MYP, for grades 6 through 8. We are a wall-to-wall school, meaning all classes and all students participate in the MYP. The program is built specially for the middle-level learner and is accessible for all. The program encourages students to take a wide range of courses, explore and expand their interests, and build and hone skills that will make them successful well beyond their school years. In the MYP, students take a second language to expand their international mindedness. We offer 3 choices at Mountainside: French, Mandarin, and Spanish. Students also continue to develop their learner profile traits, as Laura mentioned. At Mountainside, the learner profile traits are embedded into our PBIS system and can be seen across our campus. In their classes, students will be making connections to the world beyond Mountainside, Scottsdale, and Arizona through the use of global context, much like they did at Anasazi using the transdisciplinary themes. All subject areas work hard to ensure that students understand how their learning relates to broad concepts that transcend the walls of MMS. All students will be presented with ways to get involved with service learning opportunities, whether it be local or global. 8th grade students complete a capstone project called the Community Project to showcase their skills and make a difference in the community. Major assignments and assessments will likely be projects that mimic real-world experiences or use real-world skills. This could be anything from recording a podcast to building a derby car or creating an exercise and nutrition plan. Being a wall-to-wall school does not just impact our students. It also requires all Mountainside teachers to go above and beyond the typical SUSD school. Mountainside teachers teach 6 class periods a day. They do additional unit planning specific to MYP requirements. They attend additional trainings and professional developments, and they grade both traditionally and on MYP criterion-based rubrics. They're the real champions of the program, doing the heavy lifting that makes it possible for our students to have such an incredible experience. At the end of 8th grade, Mountainside students can make the choice to continue their MYP journey at Desert Mountain High School.
Thank you, Kate. Your hard work has built a fantastic foundation for the MYP program as students continue into their freshman year. But the MYP program is not only building future leaders from within the district, we are attracting families from around the valley and around the world. I'm Kevin Shea. I'm the Middle Years Program Coordinator here at Desert Mountain. I've also been teaching in the IB program for 15 years. I've had the pleasure of working with Laura, teaching HL English, and those have been the 15 of the most rewarding years of my professional life. I think IB is amazing. So the opportunity to be the MYP coordinator for the last 2 years has been incredible. During these last 2 years, we've had 110 incoming freshmen who were not enrolled in SUSD schools, and they chose to enroll in Desert Mountain's MYP program. What we do is we try to, one of the programs that we are especially proud of here at Desert Mountain and in the MYP program is the Myp Personal Project. I really love this project. Students explore an area of interest over an extended period of time during the school year. The projects are assessed on the process to transform their abilities to reflect and inquire into creating a product that, well, represents a passion. Just think of it, the opportunity to be given the time to pursue a passion. Now, students are matched with mentors who provide advice and support throughout the process. I'm privileged to be a mentor myself. I had one student learn yoga and ultimately taught a class to students and adults. Another wrote and produced a musical variety show. This year, I have a student who aspires to create an action novella and cookbook. Yep, whenever the globe-trotting protagonist grabs a bite, the reader will be treated not only to mystery, but delicious recipes from around the world. I know, right? The creativity of these kids are amazing. Now, true, not every student's vision is realized, but it's truly the journey, not the destination, that we assess. A journey that prepares students for the more rigorous tasks, such as the extended essay and CAS, and almost any challenges that face them not only in the classroom, but in life. And the projects are featured at an exhibition every spring. This year's will be February 27th at Desert Mountain, and yes, you will all be invited. Now it's the time in our program for commonly asked questions. The most popular, well, what are your numbers? This year we have 112 freshmen, 105 sophomores, 60 juniors, and 51 seniors who are enrolled in the MYP program, which leads many to ask the next question. 112 freshmen, 51 seniors. What's up with that, right? The answer, at least from my perspective, is what makes SUSD great, and that's choice. Because sure, I know we have amazing teachers in the IB program, but here at DM and across the district, you all know that we have amazing teachers in every part of the school, Gen Ed, Honors, AP. And these choices accommodate a variety of situations and learning style. For example, you'll see IB offers this full menu of courses, AP offers the more a la carte. While IB is generally, and you know how we love sweeping generalizations, but generally it's more inquiry-based and collaborative. AP is generally more content-based and independent. Both are excellent programs and both provide superior preparation for college. And I really wanted to close with this, regardless of the path they take, those emerging from the MYP program and the PYP program are uniquely qualified to succeed. Because look at the people that we produce. Oops, get back. Knowledgeable and balanced inquirers, thinkers, and communicators who are caring, open-minded, principled, and reflective risk takers. These traits make for more than just amazing IB students or AP students or honor students, but just amazing people and citizens who will be a credit to the district, the community, and most importantly, themselves.
Thank you, Kevin, and I'm going to close out the presentation. You can see we have now our house. We have the DP program with its foundation of the MYP program and the PYP program, all supporting the program at the top. And we feel like this is one of the first years we're finally able to kind of get back to normal. So we kind of, the four of us sat down and said, well, what would we like to see in the future for all three of our programs? And one of them was we would like to collaborate on projects that involve 2 or 3 of the schools, maybe doing some kind of service learning project that can come across all 3 of the actual schools. We want to increase the community's understanding of the IB programs and the unique educational experiences that they offer to our students. We want to forge relationships with community partners to allow our students to have more real-world experiences and service learning opportunities. And we also would like to continue to increase enrollment at Anasazi and Mountainside, and then increase the enrollment of the Mountainside students going on into the MYP program. So these are some of the goals that we would have for our future in the next upcoming years. So thank you for listening to us, and we will gladly take any questions that you have about our program.
I'm sure there are a few comments here. Vice President Dr. Hartwells.
Thank you to all of you for being here this evening and giving the community a preview of the outstanding IB superhighway that exists in the Desert Mountain Learning Community. That's how I think about it, really, as an infrastructure, an academic infrastructure. And as you well know, I had a student go through that program. So I love it, and I can attest to the academic rigor and the preparedness of the students coming out, whether you go to college or not. A couple of questions. I know less about kind of how Anasazi is kind of crafting their whole school. And actually, we were at Mountainside when you started this process. And so we were, like test case, I guess, to a certain extent, but I think a lot has changed since then. You're just starting to change the course offerings to adapt to this world school concept. So one point I'd like to make for the community is this is not an international school. This is an international perspective, an international outlook. So that's what this educational rigor looks like in this IB program, presumably start to finish, so ages 3 to 17, 18. And this is probably for Principal Waldron and Principal Luke a little bit more, or Ms. Harrison and Ms. Armstrong. How did you, it's very important that the mission you had up there, by the way, for the community was word for word the IB mission statement. Integrate that vision and mission into the ethos and the structure of the whole school. So both of you are whole school approaches. What were some of the things that you did in order to integrate this international mindedness into your culture?
Oh, should I? Who wants to start? I'll start. Since we're having our verification soon. I started at Anasazi in the fall of 2020, so just as COVID had really started. And the first main challenge that we had to do was write what you call our program of inquiry, which is you take the SUSD curriculum standards, but you have to weave it into the PYP framework. And when you do that, you're looking at, there's many aspects to it, but writing a central idea, and it falls under a theme. And within that, you're also looking at how it aligns to that IB mission statement with the international mindedness piece and the learner profile traits. And I have to say, it's a real brain exercise, and it was incredible what the teachers did. And then last year was our first year that we had the opportunity to teach all of the units for the first time. And one of the things the teachers said was that they feel that they were finally able to do what they were taught to do when they went to school, because they've been allowed to be creative and really consider the needs of their students. But the work really began in changing the culture even prior to coming when Ms. Waldron had the idea to start the IB program, and then just the steps that were taken to change the whole culture, which I'll let her speak to since she started that.
Good afternoon, everybody. We presented to the governing board in a similar setup here, but in the fall of 2018, my third month as a first-year principal. It seems like yesterday and also like 20 years ago. A lot has changed during those years, but a lot of the value that has come from Anasazi is just the collective buy-in from stakeholders. From the very beginning, we were meeting with parent groups, community members, site council, PTOs, and our teachers and our staff members, classified and certified, and said, we have an opportunity to really transform the climate, the culture of the school, the vision and the mission, and do what's best for kids. And we've had 100% buy-in from the beginning, which I think is just a testament to where we are now, that the staff that we've had has been so committed, and the community and our families to charging forward. Even during COVID, when a lot of schools said it's too much, our teachers met weekly to write these units of inquiry or these planners with Ms. Armstrong or myself. And I just think it just shows how passionate, we have some teachers here and Ms. Vasso here, but how passionate everyone is for it. And it's completely transformed the culture, because it's not just something we're speaking to, we're actually walking the walk. And it goes to show when you look at turnover of staff and things of that nature, we are retaining staff even during a really hard time for educators. We're having more families come when they have lots of choice. And I think it's just a feel you have on our campus that we truly believe in what we're doing. And it's just, I say this all the time to Dr. Menzel and people, it's a school culture and climate like I've never had before. And I think a lot of that has to do with what we are focused on, and that's doing what's best for kids.
Sure. What Anasazi said. So without Kate's help, without an IB coordinator to be able to work with, and to have her be able to pop into classes, sit down with teachers, lead professional developments, truly immerse Mountainside in the IB framework. Coming in 2019 with, was it a year in, 2 years in to the process? 3?
Because we verified in 2020. We started in 2016.
Gotcha. So, here I was trying to navigate the IB world. Also, meeting with members of the school and staff, and, hearing how they feel, what they're getting ready for, and truly finding the transition from concept to application. And then it was authorization time. And so to really see that journey and see a staff that stayed with it from day one until authorization has been fantastic. I know I wouldn't be able to be able to do anything without Kate, because she is very patient with me, with all my questions. And anytime I get some great idea, she has to knock me down a couple pegs and say, all right, we have to look at our authorization report. This is what we need to do. I see where you want to go, but we're going to stay on this path. So she keeps me in line. She is just a breath of fresh air for our campus, and we're just very fortunate, so.
Thanks. Just to speak to that a little more about what we're doing at our school to make sure that we're keeping the vision and the mission of IB tightly wound with Mountainside. We do look at our authorization report, which was the feedback we got from our IB visitors, and that helped us form our continuous improvement plan. And luckily, it aligns perfectly with the strategic goals, because IB just is good teaching, and it's what we want here in our district. So we choose a communication goal and a culture goal and a rigor goal that all fall into areas that we need to continually work on to keep our authorization status. We have sent almost all of our staff members now to a formal IB training. We revisit our school's mission statement and vision statement along with all our IB policies yearly at Site Council, and that has our parent community on that board, so we're getting community feedback. So those are just like a couple little ways that we're keeping the IB mission alive at Mountainside.
Thank you both for your comments. I want to ask about the service learning on the slide. It was written in the future tense, so is that something that hasn't started, or that's something that's envisioned as you start to collaborate and build this house? Kind of next steps.
So we would like to do some collaborative service learning opportunities for our school, and that's for the future. We haven't yet planned that. However, at Mountainside, like I said, all 8th graders do that community project, and that is a service learning, and it's a project that they work on from September until March. So it is much like what they're doing in the other parts of the program, but this one is community service-based.
Okay.
So that will be, that's one way that we're doing it.
And if I could add to, and Dr. Hirsch, correct me if I'm wrong, we did have a meeting, I believe, in February 2020 in regards to our collaborative project, and then March 2020 happened. So now we're at a place where we're still mitigating, but it looks a little different. So it has been a goal since earlier on. Unfortunately, there were some things that took attention other places, and so now we're excited to get back on track and have that be a focus.
Great, thank you. Just the last question, I kind of prepped you for this, and I believe some of your comments have already hit on the how, but as you know, the strategic plan and the KPIs, the key performance indicators, are on the agenda tonight to be approved. And so one thing I think would be useful for the community to know is, how do you envision the IB program realizing some of these key performance indicators? And I see it, but Julie and I are parents through this program, so we know what you do. And I will just say the teachers in these programs are outstanding, and they really are. They deserve a really big pat on the back. This is cream of the crop. But I will ask you your thoughts on how you feel the IB program will allow your schools to realize these KPIs.
I mean, there's so many KPIs, and well, there are. And looking at elementary, middle, and high school, the nice thing about the IB framework is it is applicable to all of them. You can find a way to weave it into any of the KPIs. Kate and I were talking about a couple of them, and 4.4 is a big one with our community project and volunteering and getting out in the community and working with partners. Service learning, service project, thank you. And so we were looking through and kind of saying, all right, well, these are we can easily place these into a checkbox, and then we can expand going down one by one and figuring out how it will be applicable to Mountainside, Anasazi, and obviously DM.
Yeah, we've spoken about too with all the KPIs, and I know you're looking at them further later, that just with the rigorous Tier 1 instruction, how we can reflect on them and then accelerate them, maybe the rate in which we're able to achieve them and/or the percentage of success within that. So like Mr. Luke said, there are so many, so I think after tonight specifically too, we'll be able to dive even deeper to how it will correlate together and how we can advance that through our instruction.
And just one last thing, I was at a training, and I wish I had coined this myself, but one of the trainers said, like, why IB? How do you, it was a bunch of principals, and we were talking about tours, and, a few of our schools had just been authorized, and they said, when I talk about IB, we're in the business of raising good neighbors. It's who you want to live next to. And so that encompasses so much. And so I've always used that on every tour, so stop by on Tuesdays. And I do give credit to that trainer, but it's always stuck with me because it is so very true of what we're teaching our children, so.
We have welcome Wednesdays.
Well, I would agree. I think it's an us and us attitude that runs through the IB program. But Dr. Hirsch or Ms. Kamka, Mr. Shea, you want to comment?
Again, like we've all been working towards outcomes for quite a long time. So key performance indicators that go back to whatever is in the strategic plan for our commitments and then what we want for our kids. It's without a doubt that our work hits the assessment criteria. I could predict that we'll knock it out of the park. And I can also share that the schools are going for accreditation, and in that accreditation process, we're linking it to the strategic plan, and the strategic plan and the accreditation process and the IB. The IB has to be accredited also. And every time we go for accreditation, we have to upload things called evidence. And it's not just one thing. It's about an essay every 30 seconds of here's what we do and this is why. So I think that we're really in line to be forward moving towards those KPIs. And one thing I also think is important to share that this team has been really, I guess, rigorous themselves with the teachers at Desert Mountain, because our feedback from the IB Diploma program was you need to do more with the theory of knowledge embedded in all of the classes. So that's deepening how does a scientist think? How does a scientist express themselves? And then how do other people receive those ideas, and what do you do to go back to the drawing board? So that TOK permeates the program, and then it really does get at what we're asking in the entire district, which is to deepen the learning and to make it realistic and also experiential, and that the kids can go to their internships and all of those other things that we've been making for goals for ourselves and doing. Does that help?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here again and talking to us about this program.
You all know I'm a fan. I only wish that we would have had the primary years program when my kids were at Anasazi and at Mountainside as well. Couple things that kind of threw a flag up for me, that teaching the 6 class periods per day, just so I know that's extra compared to other middle school teacher assignments. And even just hearing the elementary teacher experience and all the extra that's put on them, very aware of how this is different at the high school. And I think it's different in comparing the two, because the high school, the teachers can kind of opt in or opt out of participating, whereas at the middle school and elementary, being wall-to-wall, there's no option. I see some benefits to that of teachers potentially moving with some of their students, or as needs arise, that a teacher could fit in nicely to another IB program in our district. Are there teachers who say this isn't for me, and there's no way of pulling them into the culture of this family, this IB family? And then how would you support them, either to like buy it and go with it, or maybe find a better place to call home?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and thank you for the question. And I know we're in a little different situation at Anasazi. I say we're on a rainbow of climate and culture right now, and I know Ms. Masso's here, and she's been through it since the beginning. But I'm very upfront in the beginning. Even when it comes to the interview, there's international baccalaureate question about what do you know about IB. I always tell them this isn't a right or wrong. You're not, being penalized for not knowing this, but I make it kind of very clear that this is our mission and vision. This is what we are doing. This is what we believe, and we'd love for you to be a part. This is kind of how it's a little different than other schools. But if this isn't for you, let me help you find another place that's a good fit for you. And so I think because we're transparent with that conversation and it's not a gotcha, they know from the very beginning if they're overwhelmed, what that might look like. And we have not to date had a teacher transfer to another school in SUSD or another district within the state. They've stuck it out, and we've had one retire and then a couple leave the profession, but we've maintained our teaching staff. But I think just that relationship, everything comes down to relationship and being, for Anasazi, being open. It is different, like you said, though, we're a PYP, we're elementary, so we're naturally transdisciplinary because our teachers are teaching everything. So I can't speak for the middle years because that's more of an isolated content area, so that's a little harder to do interdisciplinary, but we've been very fortunate. And just having honest conversations about if this isn't for you, let me help you. But to date, for Anasazi, knock on wood, we've maintained the teaching staff because they're so invested and believe in it.
I'll just add one more thing. Ms. Waldron has done also a really fantastic job of providing the essential collaboration time that is necessary to run the program. So I meet with the teachers every other week during a prep period where we work on our units of inquiry. So there is built-in support so that they're not feeling like they're alone in this program. And I have to say, we were very proud that we did this process during COVID and that the teachers have not left. So in addition to all of the natural stress that was occurring unavoidably, they did all of this extra work and they wanted to stay on. And this year is really exciting because now they're seeing the benefit of all the work they've done and we're just refining the lessons. So, and that's down to the collaboration time we have. So I just wanted to add that.
That's lovely, thank you. Yes, TOK is education. It really is, and I really wish that all campuses would have the ability to embrace that, creating that family culture within their campus, whether it's whatever their focus is going to be. You guys have a natural focus here with IB, and that's great. It's best for kids, I do believe. It's not for everybody, though, and so it's nice that they have some options. Question for at the middle school. You had mentioned that there were 3 languages that you offer, Mandarin, French, and Spanish, I believe.
Correct.
Are you seeing that any of the Desert Canyon Elementary School immersion kids are choosing to come to, that is their natural path over to Mountainside, right?
Desert Canyon?
Yeah, elementary?
No, Desert Canyon Middle School.
Well, that's what I mean, like, as they move through, are they, oh, that's right. Are you seeing kids going and choosing for 6th
yeah.
grade?
I mean, it's Mountainside, so everyone wants to enroll at our school.
Are they choosing it solely because of the Mandarin
We
element?
are seeing an uptick in international students from international schools and charters around that are coming for that language component.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the kids that start in the primary years.
Yes.
And then to see the ones that choose you in the middle school and continue, and then those that come to the high school that haven't been part of the IB to start fishing out the differences.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see maybe 5-10 years down the
Oh, yeah.
road.
And it's, this would be, let's see, the 8th graders this year are the first ones from PYP?
Yeah, well, yeah, we started in 2019.
The introduction.
Where we introduced it, and so a lot of the students but had exposure to the IB learner attributes, which was the beginning of kind of the education for our whole community and the kids. So, but I think now what Mr. Luke might start saying is just that now we're starting to see how it differentiates a little bit.
And just how smooth of a transition it is, and that they come already knowing the learner profiles. They already have been introduced to that IB framework. So.
And it's okay if they come in 6th grade as well?
Yep.
Perfect. What about summer learning opportunities for the kids in IB?
For summer learning opportunities?
Yes. How are you differentiating, or are they just allowed to, like, go with the rest of the student choice options, or are there some specific for IB kids?
There's no specific for IB kids as of right now. You know, what we tell the kids who do transfer from out of state or from a different school and are nervous because they've never done an IB school. You know, I tell them, don't worry, we'll catch you up. It's basically just good teaching. It's the same Arizona state standards, same things that the Desert Canyon middle school kids are going to be learning. It's just a different approach to that lesson or that concept.
Sure.
So.
That's it for me. Thank you for all of you and all of you, the staff members that are part of this family too, because I know to build that house, it takes a lot. Yeah.
Feel free to come and visit.
That's it. Okay, thank you guys very much. And now we move on to an exciting first read, revisions to Governing Board Policy A regarding district mission, goals, and beliefs with Jennifer Mcclelland.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Menzel, there are 3 policies that are brought before you tonight for first read. The first of those 3 is Governing Board Policy A regarding district mission, goals, and beliefs. The district, as you're well aware, has gone through a strategic planning session that has resulted as of June 28th with the adoption of a formal strategic plan for Scottsdale Unified. And so the proposed revisions to this Governing Board policy would align the beliefs, missions, goals with current strategic plan.
Are there any questions or comments on that? I just would like to say that I like your red line versions. It's nice to see that what it was and what we're proposing. So thank you for creating those. I know that's extra work.
No trouble.
Yeah. Seeing there are no questions or comments, I would like to make a motion. I'm not making a motion. This is a information discussion. No comments, none. Okay. Then let's move on to E then, the first read of revisions to Governing Board Policy IGA, curriculum development.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Menzel, the current proposed revisions to Governing Board Policy IGA regarding curriculum development would align to the requirement in Arizona's open meeting law that all curriculum development committees conform with the requirements of that law. So that's one proposed change in the bottom paragraph. The other proposed change is requiring that at least 1/2 of the members of any curriculum development committee be district certificated teachers who possess content knowledge.
Any questions, comments? Dr. Hartwells?
I have no question. I have a comment that I feel pretty strongly that the curriculum committees should be predominantly represented with the content knowledge of the certificated teachers. I think this is important. This is important to observe going forward.
And it's noted in the red, so thank you for putting that forward. And we will move on then to the first read revisions to Governing Board Policy IHA, Basic Instruction Program.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, and Dr. Menzel, I'll give tech a minute. This is magic. I don't move a hand and it appears. I love it. Thank you. The proposed revisions to Governing Board Policy IHA regarding basic instructional program would bring it in line to the State Board of Education's current academic standards, which are adopted for various academic modalities. So the revisions would indicate that there is a priority to language acquisition and to math, but not first and second. So there was a removal of that language in the first part of the paragraphs, if you can see that. And then removal in the second, I don't know if you can scroll down for me, but removal, maybe I can. There we go. Yeah. Okay. We will, so there are, if we'll go back up, let me see if I can do this. So we would like to also remove this language, the first priority of, and just start that sentence with the instructional program will prioritize
Correct.
language development. So that's one additional change that's not shown in this current black line, which was a prior version. I apologize. And then an additional change. Correct. The second priority will include that part, this pair.
Second priority is removed. Yeah.
Exactly. And so those would be the two changes that are not shown right there. The remaining changes are shown right here, which is that the sentence that begins the instructional program will include plan sequences in all academic areas that align to the academic standards as adopted by the State Board of Education, and removal of that remaining language.
And I note that we did receive, it's in board docs, the correct red line versions.
Great. So the correct red line versions are in board docs, but not currently posted on our screen here.
Yep.
So,
Any questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Thank you. That was easy.
well, thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Hartwells.
At this point, we will move on to the action items section of our agenda. 5A, finalize and approve priority key performance indicators, KPIs, for the 22-23 school year.
Good
Dr.
evening.
Benson.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sanowski, Vice President Dr. Hartwells, Board Member Lindsay, Dr. Menzel, and all here with us this evening. I'm going to invite our team to pop back and forth between our slides and we have a presentation, and we'll pull this up towards the end, if they've got it. There you go. Thank you. Tonight, I'm happy to have the opportunity to present this action item requesting your consideration and approval of the priority KPIs included in your board materials, and share just a little bit about the context of how we got to the point this evening. And if they could advance the slides, or I'm happy to advance the slide. There we go. Thank you. As background information, we've had the opportunity to share the work of 3 different phases of our strategic planning teams at previous board meetings, resulting in the updated vision, mission, and values, the identification of 5 goals and commitments that accompany the goals, and 5 district-wide initiatives we're just launching to transfer our goals into practice this year. More recent context includes the board approval of the key performance indicators specific to our goals, and as our friends from the IB presentation just identified, there were a lot of those. Conversations between the board and cabinet and our executive team members during the board retreat in August, where we talked through baselines for each of the KPIs, and we discussed possible performance targets for each of those KPIs, and the initial discussion about which of those KPIs we might prioritize for this year that took place at our last board meeting in August. That brings us to this evening and this action item before you. Prior to requesting your approval, I wanted to remind all of the important clarifications reflected on the slide before us. As it's my understanding, some of you have fielded questions about KPIs and why we can't prioritize them all, and we've fielded questions like that too. Specific to academics, increasing student learning, proficiency, and growth across all grade levels, content areas, and special areas is essential, and we'll be consistently analyzing, acting upon, and reporting these measures. The KPIs identified reflect gateway indicators known to be markers for academic achievement. To reinforce this on our end, we've been intentional to write sample goals in our CIP templates, also referenced by our friends in the IB presentation, that reflect all students at all grade levels with respect to student learning and well-being. We just think that's important, that all students are recognized and see themselves within our strategic plan, and wanted to distinguish that or clarify that before engaging in discussion about our priority KPIs. Priority KPIs have been shared with you as a separate attachment included in the board documents. Before inviting your comments or questions on this, I wanted to pause and thank our teammates serving as point for each of our goal areas, and to our Dr. Bachneff too for her ongoing contributions to these baseline conversations as well. With that, we'd be happy to entertain your comments or questions about the priority key performance indicators you received in your board packet.
Dr. Menzel, do you have anything to add to this?
I'll wait to see what questions you have,
Okay.
yes.
Any questions? Vice President Dr. Hartwells.
Thank you, President Sanowski. Of course I have questions. Dr. Benson, I have fielded some questions in particular about the academic excellence assessment scores and the proposed targeted or outcomes for the year. Could you just comment on the origin of these targets and outcomes and kind of their feasibility and rigor?
Appreciate the question, and I'm just going to ask for clarification. Are you referring to the increase by 3% annually, those targets?
I am, the
Okay.
academic assessment. Yes.
And I'm going to ask our friends in the technology room behind us if they wouldn't mind teeing up the actual document once again. Appreciate that, so persons can see that.
Sure.
In the initial conversations we had with our board at the board retreat, it was recommended that we consider lofty goals, 10% perhaps over 3 years. And there was also a recommendation, a very thoughtful request that we reach out to our teachers to see what they might think about a 3% increase annually over time and a 10% over 3 years. And so we took that up, and we have heard back from those teachers, kind of did a litmus test. Got great feedback saying that the group of teachers that we reached out through our association agrees that 3% is attainable. But their request is for us to be mindful of how many programs we have at work, what we identify as a priority as we're having these conversations, what we're taking off teachers' plates. But appreciated the feedback from our teachers and the invitation from our board to check with our teachers about whether the 3% was attainable.
Thank you. And I want to underscore, the goal is 10% in 3 years.
Correct.
So the pace is also reflected in some of the literature, at least with respect to STEM education increases, and were deemed to be, at the time, aggressive, which we will see. I'm glad that you obtained that teacher feedback and that it was a collaborative response. I have a specific question on the talented and qualified professionals baseline data or lack thereof. I actually have had some questions with the community asking, why don't we have that data already? So can you give us an idea of how quickly that baseline data can be assembled, or it is there, but it's just not been updated because of lots of other things going on, or kind of how realistic is it that we have nothing? I'm sure we have something to
So you're
work from.
talking about the compensation data?
I'm
or-
talking on page 2, our page 2, increase the number of staff pursuing pathways for advancement, increase percent of district positions making competitive wages compared to peers, and then the baseline data is not there because we don't have it. It indicated here in the chart that it's not there and that it needs to be assembled.
For
could
the
you put some
salary
more
piece in particular,
color
we
on
have
that, yeah.
components. So ASBA conducts salary studies by different groups. And so there's a starting point. What we don't have is something that's comprehensive for every job classification. So it's not that we have nothing, it's that we don't have a comprehensive comparison for all of our job classifications.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. With respect to the community engagement partnerships, again, I'm just trying to drill down so we can have some clarity where there have been questions of, asking for clarity, just that. IGAs, so intergovernmental agreements, and then MOUs. The metric here, it's easy to count, but IGA is very limiting in the type of partner, and is that the intent, that the community partnership engagement is specific to MOUs and other governmental entities? Is there a broader term?
So the intent, and that's partly why it says complete audit to quantify partnerships. It's the structure and maybe formalization of the partnership. MOU signifies that there's mutual understanding of what each party is bringing to the table and what the desired benefit or outcome is. Intergovernmental agreement, more technical and focused, but still can be really relevant. So when you think about the partnership between the city of Scottsdale, SCC and SUSD, we talked about an internship project that they're working on at the city that could be expanded. That would get codified through an IGA. Some of our public-private partnerships really are more MOU rather than an IGA, but if you don't formalize it, then there's not the same shared accountability for outcomes. So that's the language. The IGA and MOU is the placeholder. But what constitutes existing MOUs is something we're still working to identify. That 260 includes things that I probably wouldn't include as an MOU. Contracts that we have with organizations to do events and DJs and some other school-based things that really, they're contracts, but they're not MOUs designed to advance learning opportunities for students, for example. So I think part of what we've realized is we need to spend some time really clarifying what we mean by those terms, because it's the substance that matters, not the number.
And I appreciate this conversation too, because we have talked about drilling down and seeking more quality programs over just adding quantity of programs, and so, or partnerships. So appreciate the extended conversation here.
Great, and yeah, I mean, to the extent, right, that the partnerships read on these other priority areas and other priority indicators is important. And then the last question I had, and again, another clarifying, and under the optimized resources, the maintain or increase ADM, and at the moment, the goal is set to maintain at the current budgeted level. And presumably, if we could, and I don't want to give you the answer, but I just want, could you comment on why it's maintain and not increase?
So this conversation took place at the board retreat. The goal ultimately is to increase, but we are also into the school year, and getting students to shift from whatever educational choice they've made to start the year to come to Scottsdale now is not always easy, nor is it necessarily in the best interest of students. So we want to eliminate the decline in students, and the goal over multiple years is to grow ADM. And so there's no question about where we want to go in the future. At the time we had the conversation, the growth goal was changed to maintain simply because of where we were in the process. It was August and school had already started.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Again, these are questions I'm getting from the community, and I think they are good ones.
Yes.
To have a response. In that same category, there's reference to the demographic study, and this is the demographic study the district has been doing. And we had some discussion at the last board meeting on this. And I've been thinking about this a little more follow-on. And I see the term here again, recapture rate. So retention and recapture rates. I still feel like that is just not a comprehensive scope. And my question is the demographic study that we've been doing, is it not as useful as it used to be in what we want to be focused on? Maybe, is it time to rethink what the performance of that scope of work would look like so that it can answer some questions that aren't being answered by the demographic studies that have been done in the past?
Can you say a little bit more about that?
So for example, recapture rate. So what about the students that weren't here in the first place? That's not a recapture. So, and I don't know enough the technical components of what this scope of work has been over the years in this demographic study. But when we talked about this before, if I remember right, Shannon had commented that, we weren't sure that that data could be obtained, some data, like the student who hasn't been at SUSD before, but then does come, say, because they want to be part of the IB superhighway. How do we get that number? How do we know that percent? Is it already in the study, or is it just we need to rethink how we write that scope of work?
Come on up, Shannon.
So for the demographic study that we have asked for this year, we specifically asked that the demographer look at students that are in our district, but where are they coming from? So if a student is in our district and not attending one of our schools, we'll be able to see that information.
Okay.
But if they're, say, live in the Hohokam community and they're going to Kiva, he'll be able to pull that out. That isn't something that we've received in the past or asked for specifically in the past when we've done these studies. We did this when we looked at Coronado, and so we specifically asked for this study to look at that and to see what students are living in our community that might not be attending. I won't know, if they're not attending, I won't know where they're going, or the demographer won't know where they're going. But to be able to tell how many we could be missing and where students are that live within our community, which we haven't had that information in the past.
Okay, so there has been some refinement on what the scope of work looks like so that we can have more granularity, because I think there's some terms have been thrown around in the community and even in conversations, and I'm not really sure we have the data to be using those terms yet. I'm not convinced that we have all of the pieces of the puzzle here to understand how this is going to be implemented. Because I understand they stop the decline, change the slope of the graph, right? But then to actually build some momentum in the opposite direction of gaining students, I feel like the demographic study we have in the past isn't big enough. A more complete picture would be useful. But it sounds like you are rethinking that, so that's good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've, like I said, we've specifically asked that be addressed. They don't actually pull our data until we've hit the 40th day. So we still have time if there's something else that we think we're missing or that we haven't gotten in the past, we can still go back to him and say, we'd also like you to include this. But he is aware that one of the big things that we want to see is how many students are living in our neighborhoods. Are they attending our schools? If they are, what school are they attending? If they're not, how many aren't?
Okay.
Are there other demographers that do this work besides the one we work with?
I suspect there probably is. The one we use is the one that is used primarily by most districts within the state. So they do the bulk of the work in the state. Are they the only demographer? Probably not. They're just the one that most people use.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, this is really for Dr. Menzel, if you could just add some context around, kind of back to Goal 2, Culture and Climate, on the increased attendance for students. Why we feel that is an important key performance. There's a reason,
Sure.
so I'd like you, if you could
Right,
just
so
remind.
student attendance is a proxy for a number of things. So when you have chronic absenteeism defined as 10% or more of missed days, student failure rate increases significantly, likelihood for dropping out increases significantly, discipline and behavior issues are elevated. And so attendance represents more than just being at school. It represents opportunity to learn or lost opportunity to learn. I often have told people when we discuss this, when students are suspended from school, it's not that they're not learning, they're just not necessarily learning the right thing. So if we want them to benefit from high-quality teachers and high-quality instruction, being present for that is important. Creating culture and climate where students want to be present every day, they don't want to miss, is also part of what our challenge is, to make those learning environments so compelling that students don't want to miss. If it's boring, if it doesn't feel like it's safe and inviting, those are things that will cause more absences than we would like to see. What you heard tonight in the IB presentation reflects engaging learning opportunities that should draw students to come to school every day. I wouldn't want to miss all of the exciting things that are going to happen when you create that kind of learning environment. But the flip side is if you don't increase attendance rates, academic achievement and other negative outcomes follow.
Thank you. And then the last question, this is also again for Dr. Menzel to comment on and maybe just share with the community, particularly in the academic excellence, again, that nation's report card report came out. It did not paint a great picture. What do you envision being the actions and the steps that you hope to take this year to achieve these? And I'm specifically talking about the academic excellence performance targets, to realize those targets.
So I think there are a couple of things. One, supporting our classroom teachers. We have recently completed baseline assessments across the elementary middle school so that we have a sense of where our students are. It's an important first step in the process, so then we can tailor our instruction to meet the needs of the students where they are. One of the failed strategies is to just teach to the middle or the average and expect that you're going to produce superior results, because there's no such thing as average. You have kids where they are, and so we need to have and provide our teachers with the support based on where their students are. So we have that data. We should have a report for you to kind of give you a sense of where we are in the next month or so. I think it's by mid-October. Teachers will have that data sooner. That's the starting point. And then with our district team, providing support for our building level leaders to make sure that we're identifying students who might be falling off track so that we can provide supplemental resources and support. Attendance tracking is one of those things. If students have started missing more school, we may need to do interventions sooner rather than later. We don't want a wait to fail model. We want to be cognizant of where things start to shift off track and provide support as quickly as possible. So being focused on those things, paying attention to the data that really matters, and really providing support for our teachers is the key.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Benson and Dr. Menzel, I'm glad you guys have carefully considered the work that needs to be done. I agree with all of the sentiments Dr. Hartwells has shared, and I have shared some of those concerns with you as well. I'm glad to see the other goal areas added through the interest-based negotiation process, considering reducing class sizes for K-3 and review and revise the organizational chart to align with our strategic priorities. I also agree that the quality of our IGAs and our community partnerships and MOUs, to me, that's way more important than just adding numbers to a list. I want to make sure that everything that we're doing is focused around providing a better experience for our students and our staff. So whatever that might be, and it might be we take some of these away. That's why I have a concern of the increasing them by number, because I think sometimes when you have too much on your plate, the plate's just messy and it's hard to focus. So I think sometimes just focusing on fewer is probably a better way to achieve success. Those were my 2 cents worth on that. Something I want us to really consider too when we talk about those pathways for advancement. I think there's a misconception that all teachers want to be school administrators. There are great teachers that want to be great teachers, and there are teachers that want to be administrators. So I think it's important for us to not think of those pathways for advancement only meaning administrative to, or from teacher to administrative, or even from administrative to leaving our district and going elsewhere. I mean, I see it differently. And from our classified employees, what is an advancement for them? What does that look like too? Is it a different job family? Is it, a different leadership role within that same job family? I think it's so varied that we need to consider that as employers of so many. And maybe it should be, understanding that sense of self-worth and value as a professional, whatever that might look like, or the opportunity to pursue professional accomplishments and be creative as a professional. That was already mentioned here this evening, and how that really does motivate our employees. So I'd like for us to stay flexible and maybe revisit some of the KPI language itself. That could be part of our work as well. I have no more comments on that if my board colleagues don't. At this time, I would actually like to make a motion to finalize and approve the priority key performance indicators for the 22-23 school year. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next is the approval of salary increase and new salary schedules, and I believe Shannon is going to be leading that discussion.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Board President Sanowski, Vice President Dr. Hartwells, Board Member Lindsay, and Dr. Menzel. Tonight, I have the pleasure of standing up here and saying that we have additional funds, and we'd like to use those additional funds to increase the pay for our for our employees. When we look at the strategic goal alignment, this focuses really on robust recruiting and hiring strategies, as well as supporting employee agency, innovation, and retention by offering a superior compensation package and an environment where employees feel valued and enjoy contributing, as well as aligning our budgets. I had a conversation with Patty before the board meeting, and she shared with me that she had an employee who had put in her resignation. And upon hearing that we were going to be taking to the board an increase of $2 per hour for classified employees, she rescinded that resignation. So that right there tells me that this makes a difference. So what happened that led to this process? The state was kind of late on getting their K-12 budget package ready for us and approved. And so that came after we had put together what our budget was and done our salary packages for employees that were approved. And so with that additional funding, the state provided much more on the base level than what we thought they would, or amount per student than what we thought they would. Additionally, they increased a Group B weight, and they added a Group B weight for free and reduced lunch. So with that, we think, or we believe, that we will see an estimated $7 million more than what we projected in the spring when we originally came forward with a budget package. So kind of looking at what happened with the budget, when we came forward to the board and said this is what we would like to do for our employee package back in March, we projected a 2% increase, which is what was mandatory for the state to do based on inflation. So that put us at about $174 million. We knew that that was going to increase when we did the proposed and adopted budget. We just didn't know how much. So when we did the proposed, we increased it by actually about 5%, which is where we picked up $3 million more than what we originally anticipated. But by the time the whole package was done from the state, it was more than what we even anticipated. So with that, we estimate about $7.4 million more. That's all based on what our ADM looks like, but we estimate that that'll be about $7.4 million more than what we originally thought when we started preparing the budget for this year. So with that $7 million, we went to the employee groups and said we have $6 million for salary increases. The reason I came up with 6 when we said we had 7.4 is that I went to Dr. Menzel and said, we have positions that are in cash accounts that just, we can't continue to keep them there. The revenue has gone down because of COVID and other issues. Expenses have gone up considerably more than what we thought when we moved them over in 2019 pre-pandemic. And so having the additional funds now was the right time. One, they were gonna have to come out by next year, but now was the right time to do it when we have the additional funds. So with that, we moved about $1 million from cash accounts in Medicaid and some community education. We take a percentage of community education funds and move that to a business account. That's the account that we moved people out of, and they were mainly facilities individuals. And so that left us with $6 million more for salary increases. So when we look at that $6 million, we met with the employee groups and said, okay, this is some of the options. And what they came forth with was the $15 per hour, which is a $2 per hour increase for all employees. It's about $3 million. Certified increase of 3%, which is about $2.8 million. Assistant principals and principals of 3%, which was $233,234. And then district administration and cabinet positions, a flat rate of $2,500. And part of the issue, or part of the thinking with the flat rate, is that that really rewards our lower district admin staff that don't make as much as other employees do that are in there, and it gives them a little bit more of an increase than we would for some of our others. I will point out that within that increase for cabinet, it does not include Dr. Menzel, and it does not include Dr. Karen Benson. Their salaries will stay the same for the rest of this year. So we did go over a little bit over the $6 million. We project we'll have about 7.4, so I'm comfortable going over a little bit. We know that ADM right now is down a little bit from what we wanted it to be. We're still waiting to see what that levels out to be, but it did take us a little over, but I'm not overly concerned with that amount over. This just looks at the certified and administrative contract language. We do have in there language that says that if the state legislature does something that would change our budget or revenues, that we would be able to increase or change salaries for certified and administrators. So the process that we went through, and it was kind of mentioned earlier by the 3 employee groups earlier this evening, is that We met with all 3 employee groups. We laid out a menu of options that flat rates, percent increases, and basically said these are several different options, and go back and see what you think works with your employee groups, and we'll come back and regroup. So they did that. They went to their respective groups and came back later in August and said this is what we would like to see happen. And what we are bringing forth tonight is what basically came out of those conversations. So the salary increases, again, would be 3% for certified. That includes OTPT, guidance counselors, speech pathologists, nurses, psychologists. We originally gave 3% back in March, so this would put them at a total of a 6% increase for this year, bringing teacher starting pay up to $47,434. Classified employees would be the $2 an hour flat rate. We had changed their salary schedule last year, or for this year earlier, and so every employee within classified had originally gotten at least a 3% increase. Our lowest paid employees actually got more than the 3%, so adding this additional $2 in is a huge step forward for our classified employees. For the principals and assistant principals, we had done a 3% increase originally. We're recommending another 3% for a total of 6%. District administration, we had done a 3% increase in March, and then like I said, we would do a flat rate of $2,500 for those employees. And then for cabinet, they were given a $1,500 flat rate increase, and this recommendation is for another $2,500 flat rate. And again, all of these are prorated by FTE, so if you're only a 0.5 FTE, it would not be the full $2,500. So the next steps is that payroll has already started looking at the salary schedules and getting things ready in anticipation of approvals tonight. We would make this retroactive to the beginning of the employee start date. So if they start July 1st, it would be July 1st. If they started later on, it would take effect from their start date. Payroll will issue a separate check. So they'll go through, recalculate everybody's pay. So it'd be a separate check for the difference between what they would have been making had this taken place effective effective the beginning of the school year versus now. So they'll do a separate check, and then the increase would be included on their September 27th pay. So I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. I wanted to just add something. You mentioned this, but I think it's really important to repeat this. Dr. Menzel's contract is negotiated separately from other staff members, so he will not be getting these particular increases. And I don't want to embarrass Dr. Benson, but I'm going to say this anyway, and it may embarrass her, but sorry. She actually chose to not receive these increases, being new back to SUSD. She wanted to advocate for these compensation increases for employees, and in doing so felt it would have been kind of a conflict of interest to support this and then receive it herself. So I highly respect that decision of Dr. Benson's, and one of the reasons why I love her so much. She's putting others before herself, and that's awesome. And I'm thrilled that we're able to consider raising the floor a little bit and raising the bar for everyone. And I would love to be the destination district for reasons of compensation as well as benefits and respect for our employees, hopefully soon in the future. So with this, I'm thrilled to be able to, that our groups negotiated and talked about these. In the future, I think it'd be great to give them an option of coming up with their own options on what they would like for proposals. So something to consider moving forward. Thank you. Vice President Dr. Harwells.
Thank you, President Sinowski. Thank you, Shannon. Could you go back to one of your earlier slides that has a kind of a snippet of the budget? Yeah, that one.
Yep.
Okay. So what does this do to the adopted budget to date?
So that's a great question. Right now, we have adopted budget of 174 million, well, actually, it's a little, 177 million. This will increase it. We can do that when you do, I mean, we're based off of current year funding, so budgets are revised throughout the year, so we'll be bringing forth a revised budget in December. It will not change our tax rates because that has already been set. So there's no, because it's going up more than what we brought forth in the proposed, there's no additional tax rate change that's going to happen for our community. That's already set, so what it is done, and we'll actually receive a little bit less in cash, but we're okay. That's it. We're able to, we go off of a budget, so having the cash doesn't affect the budget. So there'll be no impact to the taxpayer for that.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Operationally, though, you will be back for a revised budget by the end of the calendar year to absorb these changes.
Yes.
Correct.
We are required to bring that back by December 15th. So we'll have it, that first meeting in December will be a revised budget.
Okay, very good. And then I would also like to ask, so the SUSD starting teacher pay, I guess we'll go back towards the end. Okay, that moves
That moves the teaching starting pay to 47,000.
434.
434.
And what does that compare, how does that compare to the state starting pay? Or what number do you have as a comp?
We look primarily at average teacher when you look at, when you're looking at salaries, because that's what's required to be posted for each district. I don't have an answer for you on how that compares with other school districts. I believe when we've looked at this in the past, we've been kind of in the middle, but there's a lot of districts that are still meeting and communities that are going back to their governing boards to make new recommendations, but for salaries based on what happened with the state this year. So what's posted right now may not be what's happening because other districts like us are revising salary schedules for this year. So I don't have a definitive answer of where we land with other districts.
We do know that in the Southeast Valley, a number of districts, Mesa, Chandler, Queen Creek, and others have moved their starting salary to at least 50,000. So it's below where we'd like to be. We also have history where the district, in trying to address starting wage, lopped off the first 8 steps, but that created a different situation on the salary structure. So we didn't want to do something that we couldn't sustain in terms of its impact on other employees. But it's an area where I think when we go back to the bargaining table a year from now, getting that number closer to 50,000 to be competitive in the Southeast Valley, and the additional increases for other staff who've been here. So loyalty, recognition, I think both are important.
Okay, thank you. I would be interested in that number anchored to, I mean, that's good anecdotally. I'm just curious what that looks like in context once the dust settles a little bit. What does that do to the, and you may not know this answer yet, what does that do to the ratio or percent of spending, classroom spending?
Well, the majority of our salary and benefit goes to certified. So when you increase that, that kind of levels it out. How it will completely roll out and fall, I don't know yet. We have lots of vacant positions, so do those get filled? Do they stay vacant? A lot of those vacant positions are in classified areas, so if they stay vacant, then there's no spending in there. It doesn't really affect our dollars in the classroom. So that's one of those we'll still have to continue to monitor. The fact that we're giving raises, teacher raises are also going up. I know we're making a big impact on the classified employees, but the employee group for that area and the amount that they're paid is so much less that I don't think it'll make a huge impact or negatively impact our dollars in the classroom spending.
Okay, And I was referring to the Auditor General's
Yes.
definition. You seem to understand that, just to clarify it for the community. Okay, well, that would be good. I think we've made a good effort in keeping our classroom spending where it should be in the classroom. And so that would be great if this kind of equilibrium just gets established, since it's across the board. Pat on the back. Thanks, Shannon.
Board Member Lindsay.
Just for clarifying, I was asked this earlier, is the 3% based on their current salary right now or last year's salary?
Great question. It is based on right now, and it'll be put on the base.
So that should be a little bit more than 6%.
Yeah, from where you were last year.
Good question. Yeah. All right, if there are no more questions, then I would like to make a motion to approve the salary increase and new salary schedules as proposed. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Moving on to the approval of the superintendent's annual goals and performance pay plan. Dr. Menzel.
So a lot of this will look very familiar to the key performance indicators and the priorities that were discussed earlier this evening. What you have in front of you, in addition to those performance targets that were reviewed earlier, are proposed weighting connected to each of those that reflects 60% of the total performance pay being connected to the 2 academic goals, increase academic achievement, as well as the CTE program completers and industry certifications. 10% connected to the improvement in climate and culture, 10% to attracting and retaining talent, 10% to enhancing and expanding partnerships, and 10% to optimizing resources. So from a structure perspective, that was the starting point for your review this evening. I did not in the components here identify weighting for these other goal areas. They're important. We'll discuss them both at our mid-year update meeting as well as the summative review. But from the performance pay perspective, I believe this aligns with the statutory expectations, and I'd be open to any modifications or suggestions from the governing board.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. I have some questions. There were questions that were brought up and suggestions brought up earlier this evening about some of these KPIs and then how we could improve upon them. I'd like to suggest that we place some of these ideas and recommendations into the performance pay goals as well. Does that make sense?
You had to give me specifics.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's just talk about the increase in number of staff pursuing pathways for advancement. The language, can we more clearly identify what advancement is in your performance pay goal?
So when we say identify and establish measures, our conversation at the cabinet level is really about a very expansive definition. So for example, micro-credentialing, so getting enhanced skill certification. Could be NBCT. We have a fair number, but that can always grow. It could be individuals wanting to move from the classroom into administration. So we've talked about, do we need a dean in addition to assistant principal, some pathways for more opportunities because they're just limited if you want to move into administration. We also talked about there are people who are working in classified positions who may want to move into the classroom. You could have a paraprofessional who wants to become a teacher. So because there are so many different pathways, we want to talk about a number of ways to advance and not just focus on how do you move from being a teacher to admin like you mentioned earlier. And that's why we think this year is really important to kind of frame that. And then we can measure how many people have advanced credentials, whether they've gone back to get Google certified on something or project management, or if they're working in grounds and facilities, did they get some enhanced credential that can help them be more efficient at their work? So all of those could be paths to advancement within the organization.
Okay, understood. And I recognize that the the identifying and establishing the measures, that'll come back to us then.
Yes.
As a governing board of these are the things that we have done. It's not going to be so vague as it is here in black and white
Correct.
now. Okay, that's acceptable. Vice President Dr. Hartwells?
So the math on the weightings doesn't add up on the enhance and expand partnerships. It's at 5. You've got 10 assigned. And I actually would prefer it just to be 5, given there's not a lot of baseline. There's a lot of, I guess, foundational work that needs to be done there. So it'll be a little more qualitative anyway. So I would just suggest we keep it at 5, given you've got it weighted at 3 and 2 instead of the overall category having 10, that leaves 5 for elsewhere. And you had 12% on the climate and culture, not 10.
Right.
So, so that's a net 3 needs to be assigned.
I see some other goal areas that don't have anything assigned to them at the end.
Yeah, the CTE number doesn't have anything assigned to it. What are others' thoughts on that?
Well, you know what, Dr. Hartwells brings up a good point. There's no weight given to the increase, the CTE
Enrollment.
number enrolled. Maybe that's where our
Put the
additional
3%
3%
there.
goes. I hate to just dump a number without us being able to potentially prioritize something else that might be at 2% right now and do a flip. What would be the thought of adding 2% to number enrolled CTE and then add a percentage to increasing attendance for students?
I certainly, I don't know that I have any objections to that. Generally, I just wonder if we should put more emphasis on the ADM, kind of halting the decline.
I'm good with that, too. Board Member
What do you think?
Lindsay?
I
Do you
like the ADM.
have ADM?
So does that mean 2% on the number enrolled and 1% more, so 9% on the ADM?
Was that was there a reason that you didn't propose a weight on that or on the
On the,
enrolled CTE?
on the number enrolled, the reason I didn't is because I thought the more important measure is the percent earning certification.
The
And
end
so
result?
if you thought just the enrollment was an indicator, I was open to that, but I thought the one that had more value is walking away with a credential.
Sure.
Okay. Agreed. I vote for reallocating a higher weight to,
ADM?
halting the decline in the ADM. So that
Are we
puts that
looking
at
at a 9
11.
or a 10 there to get our numbers to 100?
Well, it'd need to be 11, right? We've got a net 3.
That
You
one
put
would be
all
11.
three there? Is that what you said?
Yes, that would be my suggestion, but I am open to an alternative suggestion.
So leave the number enrolled blank like I had and move the 3 to ADM.
Yeah, it's just your total
Yep.
weights
So that puts
adjust.
the achievement one still at 60, improved culture and climate at 12, 10, 5 on the enhanced partnerships, 13 on optimized resources.
Yep. Any other questions on that or discussion? Dr. Menzel?
Works for me.
Okay, numbers add up?
Now they do. Well,
Now they do.
they added up to 100 before, it's just the subcomponents didn't add up to the sum total.
Your nesting was a little off, but that's okay.
Right.
Yeah,
All good.
all right. Looks good. Seeing that there are no additional comments or questions, I would like to seek a motion to approve the superintendent's annual goals and performance pay plan
As revised.
as revised. Thank you.
Second?
Were you providing the first? Because I was seeking the,
I'm providing the first.
there we go. And
I'll second.
Board Member Lindsay is going to second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes as revised, 3-0. Thank you, guys. Good conversation, too. We're moving on to action item 5D, approval of the Arizona Latino Leaders in Education, All in Education Services Agreement. And I believe Jennifer is here to provide us with opportunity to ask her questions.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Menzel. So this agreement is an agreement that would allow the district to create a partnership with an outside organization to foster and develop parents in your community to serve as district employees. So that's the purpose. I did make some recommended changes to the agreement to address FERPA and providing certain confidential information so that that information would be protected, but that was the majority of my changes with respect to the legalese of the agreement. And I know that Dr. Menzel was very excited to bring this partnership forward to your district. So I don't know if he wants to speak about it for the one campus.
Well, I actually have to thank Dr. Hart-Wells, who engaged in a conversation with a board member from Phoenix Union, who actually runs the company and talked about this opportunity. That was last December, I think. And so long time in developing the opportunity, but they have separate grant funding. And they had a very productive meeting with Dr. Perniska at Yavapai, which is a great opportunity to continue to build community there and potentially create a feeder pathway for individuals to come and work at Scottsdale Unified. So at a minimum or base level, you're engaging parents in a way that's constructive with the school. So the parent engagement piece is critical. There could be a tangential benefit of additional employees down the road as well.
Love it. And this increases our, so it's working on your goal right away, right? Vice President Dr. Hart-Wells.
Thank you, President Snowski, and thank you, Dr. Menzel. I just want to say a few words about the organization and the grantor, actually, so that you all know what this kind of partnership represents. It's a little bit different since I've been on the board, at least, that the district's engaging in. The All in Education, its core values all align with our district's core values, and they specifically emphasize partnerships that are based on engagement and right, community meets community with this organization, and in particular, they focus on the Latino community. They acknowledge, and I like this, as you can imagine, that leading means you do have to humble yourself and acknowledge what is and what is not working for your students. And willing, and their kind of credo is learn, adapt, and then learn some more. I believe the Parent Educator Academy that's envisioned under this scope of work represents a timely and a constructive step for all of us. Recognizing the multiple ways that this partnership with the district and the Parent Educator Academy can positively impact our community. This is why the Scottsdale Industrial Development Authority has approved $50,000 to fund this entire project. For those of you that don't know, the IDA was incorporated by the state in 1984. It's actually an independent political jurisdiction of the state. The city of Scottsdale nominates and appoints its board. The work that's carried out by the district in partnership with All in Ed has met, it's an economic development organization. So their criteria, which this proposal met in spades, was, among other things, providing opportunity for job growth in Scottsdale, supporting economic development that aligns with the city's goals and offers a measurable enhancement to the quality of life for our residents and our business owners, and dare I say, our school. So I want to thank Ms. Para and the All in Education team and our neighbors at the Scottsdale Industrial Development Authority for being great partners in purpose for our students, our staff, our families, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hartwells. I will note that this is a 4-page, is this something that's viewable to the general public as well, so they can see the details of this 4-page MOU?
Madam President, I believe it's posted on Board Docs. I know that it
Is it?
was
Okay,
uploaded. so-
super, thank you. All right.
I just have
Sure.
one, there is a technical component on attachment A. It says fall of 2020. I think it meant to say fall of 2022.
I'll make sure I get that
Okay,
correction made,
so-
Dr. Hartwells.
Thank you.
Awesome. Seeing that there are no more questions or comments about this particular action item, I would like to request a motion to approve 4D or 5D, approval of the Arizona Latino Leaders in Education, All in Education Service Agreement,
As revised.
as revised. Yes, there was a revision there, wasn't there?
Second.
Debate. You're making the initial motion.
All right, first.
We're going to play this game, and then I will provide a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you for this important work. Moving on to action item 5E, authorization for expenditure courtesy Chevrolet for vehicle replacement. Vice President Dr. Hartwells. Your mic.
Sorry. Thank you, President Sinowski. I'm a little discombobulated this evening. Sorry.
A lot of material.
I'd actually like, in the interest of all things future-focused, I would like to request that we table this agenda item 5E for now to allow time for an analysis, comparative cost for more energy-efficient alternative fuel options for the vehicles.
All right. Would you like to make a motion to table this?
I would like to make a motion to table agenda item 5E.
And I would second that motion to table 5E. All in favor to table the authorization for expenditure courtesy Chevrolet for vehicle replacement, say aye.
Aye.
We are tabling, the motion passes 3-0, tabling that item. Moving on to our last action item for the evening. That would be 5F, authorize the expenditure for guaranteed maximum price number 2 of 2 RFQ 22-20-26, construction manager at risk, services for Pueblo Elementary Schools. Mr. Whaler, how are
Good
you this
evening.
evening?
Once again, you guys have saved the best for last. But before I get into that, President Sinowski, Dr. Hartwells, Mr. Lindsay, Dr. Menzel, I'd like to just introduce a few folks, actually just a couple of teams. First and foremost, the awesome principal from Pueblo Elementary School, Shelley Hummin. The team from BWS Architects. And the team from McCarthy. These are very, very difficult times in construction. Nothing is cheap, nothing goes well. It takes a lot of effort from a lot of people, mostly from the folks in the back of the room, to make things happen and come out with the right result. Today's agenda item is to approve GMP 2. The agenda item itself identifies the progress that we've made over the last several months of a JOC number 1, a JOC number 2, and then GMP number 1 to get some of that early procurement out of the way, get the project going. So today is really just a culmination of all of the work that everyone's done and to do the final approval, the final authorization of this project. Our ask today is for the authorization to move forward with $16,565,362. That is not all bond dollars. $1,548,009 are adjacent ways dollars. I've got on the screen now a full breakdown of our costs associated with the bond. And Pueblo will be our most expensive school, without exception. $28,654,196. Those are adjacent ways dollars, bond dollars, and other funding sources to get this job done. We, as we've always done, is provide you with a spend commitment, breaking down the costs and showing how they coincide with the contractual obligation between SUSD and McCarthy. This is the GMP number 1 that was approved a couple of months ago. GMP 2, again, a breakdown of the costs associated with the contract. And then there was a request, and I can't see this nearly as well as the screen is, but there was a request to identify kind of how we got here. It's been 6 years that I've been on board at SUSD. We've completed 10 major projects, and it has been a journey, to say the least. Pueblo will be our last school rebuild on the docket. We've got some additional bond dollars and work that still needs to be done, but Pueblo will be the last of the real heavy lifts. As you can see from the top of the spreadsheet, the original plan was a little different than where we landed. It was expected to be done last year, or actually this past summer, and we're still moving into all of next year with Pueblo. There were things that were moved around in previous administrations. Different priorities were set. And I might mention that since 2016, 2 governing boards, 4 superintendents, 5 chief financial officers, and 1 Dennis Railer. We had no money set aside for project management. We had no money set aside for inflation or escalation. I've said it before, Scottsdale Schools tends to have a student to square foot ratio that is difficult to manage when you're trying to work a budget for a new building. We had COVID-19 that absolutely destroyed the world, I think. Supply chain issues and labor force shortages that have all impacted the work that we've done. As you can see, that bottom right-hand corner has quite a few projects that were impacted by COVID. And some critics might say, well, you've overspent the budget. Well, we've also managed the budget extremely well considering the circumstances, and we've moved projects, as I've identified in previous board memos, out of the bond into school facilities board action so that we can recover those dollars that we've overspent in the building of buildings. So I will leave those thoughts with you. At this point, we are looking for authorization to spend the $16,565,362. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them for you.
Board colleagues, questions? Vice President Dr. Hurtwells.
Thank you, President Sanowski. Thank you, Dennis, for walking through kind of the history and how kind of it had to adapt accordingly to a number of things. The current contract, the ask here is under the Mojave Cooperative?
Negative. This
Okay.
was a CMAR procurement. So we went through the typical procurement process for a construction manager at risk. And Mojave was only used for the procurement of our architectural firm.
The design component.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Ms. Mcclelland, the CMR is CMAR is the contract that was used with Kpis.
Madam President, Dr. Hartwells, so the construction management at risk agreement for this item was the agreement that you approved in June of this year. This second GMP will become an exhibit to that agreement, as is the first GMP. And the agreement that you approved in June was the format that was vetted through your partnership with the City of Scottsdale, taking into account the auditor's comments regarding that agreement, as well as dividing the agreement up into a pre-construction and construction.
Thank you, and that was what I was wanting to remind the community, that this contract does incorporate what we learned from our audit under the HOHOCOM construction contract. That's very helpful. And then in your chart, not that one, the one that you have over the 6-year project schedule, I think I'd asked you this in the email, Dennis, and I may have gotten it to you too late today for you to see it, but in some of these closeouts, there was money back. Are those numbers reflected here, or does that go into a different fund?
All money back to us. Any deductive change orders are returned to the bond fund, and they are reflected in this document.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to thank not only Dennis and all of the other individuals that are involved in these projects constantly, because you have identified my questions as to why this elevation in cost. You've identified those in red here on the slide. So I appreciate you doing that. I also want to thank my board colleagues for continuing to push and ask the good questions so that not just we understand the heavy lift that's involved, but that our general public that supports our district public schools, so they also understand what's involved, and there are factors that we cannot help that are presented throughout the scope of work. And appreciate all that you have done in this district throughout this journey since 2016 and the last bond to pass. So thank you, Dennis. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I just want to clarify, so the approval tonight, though, is the allocation of the expenditures out of the funds that you've proposed on the slide that was just up, right?
Correct.
Adjacent ways, 510.
Yes.
16 million,
Okay.
565.
To further clarify, any of these on the bottom part of this slide, if it is 611 fund, that's typically paid for playground equipment, play structures. We will come back again for that. So you're not approving that. That's just identifying for you what that spend could look like. So when we do get the final proposals, we will bring those back for your approval because they will be in excess of $100,000.
Sure. Right, seeing if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve 5F, authorize the expenditure for guaranteed maximum price number 2 for RFQ 22-20-26, CMAR services for Pueblo Elementary School. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to adjournment. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second?
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 8:27 PM.